The pandemic forced the airline industry to experience billion-dollar revenue losses and steep plunges in passenger demand. As travel returns, what does the future hold for the airline industry? And beyond the pandemic, how can air travel become more sustainable and more innovative? Joining me now to discuss all this more is Scott Kirby, CEO of United Airlines. I need to preface this by saying I flew back from Hawaii recently. Scott, I saw you on the video in my monitor in front of me. You committed by 2050 to being carbon zero, and by doing this with carbon sequestration, investing in biofuels. It was very bold, very, very blunt what you were doing. Are you serious?
Absolutely. First, thanks for the business. Thank you for flying. I hope it was a great flight. What I find is once people have taken their first flight, it just opens the world up to you. And it's a huge psychological recovery to get back to travel. But on sustainability, and particularly climate change, it is a personal passion of mine, has been since I was in college. And now in a position to really do something about it. And it's important that we in the world and corporate leaders focus on real solutions. And so what we've done at United, despite the fact that we're in a hard industry to decarbonize, we've made a commitment to be 100% green. That, by the way, is different than a lot of the net zero commitments that you've seen from other companies. And really what's different about it is we've made a commitment to get to 100% zero without using the traditional carbon offset. And what that means are the things you talked about. Sustainable aviation fuels are going to be a big part of our future, and creating fuel from sources other than hydrocarbons. And then the second one is carbon sequestration. We partnered with Occidental in what will be the world's largest direct air capture and sequestration plant. It's a longer conversation, but it's hard for me to do the math for the globe and make it all add up to get the globe to zero without sequestration. And that is a much more permanent and a much more scalable solution than traditional carbon offset. So we're proud to be taking the kinds of steps that we think will actually have the ability to get the world to net zero in the future.
Well, look, it's a bold plan. And one of the things I want to discuss with you is how you're coming through the crisis and tension of this pandemic. I mean, air travel for me, it's like a social contract I have with your company and a lot of other companies in moving around. And that has been a stressful time. Now, out of that stress, we're also making big investments in this country by way of infrastructure and looking at and that can't be about yesterday's infrastructure. It has to be about tomorrow's infrastructure. So as you look at what you've committed to, but also bringing us out of this trauma that you and your company have gone through, what do you need to see from the Biden administration plan on infrastructure? What gets you there? What helps bring people back into travel in this sort? And as you hit these sustainability goals, what do you need to have out there that's not there now?
Well, as tough as this pandemic has been, it has been really tough on aviation and United. One of the great things is I think we've made a decade's worth of progress in a number of areas. The customer experience probably being number one. But what it's also become clear is that United is a brand and a company that has a high profile and can make a bigger difference in the world. So, we came into the pandemic and we were focused on being a great airline. Our goal was to be the best airline in the world. We're setting our sights higher now, that we can be the best airline in the world, but we can also make a difference in the world. And two of the areas that we focused on for making a difference in the world are on sustainability and on our diversity efforts and taking real action on diversity. But the administration and everyone in Capitol Hill can help not just United Airlines, but the country. There's a near universal consensus that infrastructure is important in this country. And that there's a lot we can do to improve the infrastructure. For aviation, it's really about improving the airspace and the next generation aviation system to allow us to fly more efficiently, which also, by the way, reduces carbon emissions in the short term. We're also hoping to get support for sustainable aviation fuels to really drive down that cost curve. Today, it's a lot more expensive to buy a fuel that is produced from municipal solid waste than it is if it's produced from traditional oil. But we can drive down that cost curve with the right kind of government support, and other areas like carbon sequestration, where the administration and the infrastructure bill can be really critical to giving this industry a leap forward and getting the momentum where it can become self-sustaining, much like wind and solar have become self-sustaining. So we're very supportive of the infrastructure program the infrastructure bill, and hope that we can get that done. I think it'll be good for our industry, our customers, but also good for the overall economy.
Years ago, Scott, I interviewed your predecessor, Oscar Munoz, and we were discussing at that time air traffic control. And it had been the day after, I think, that they had signed the deal to continue to stay at Dulles Airport. We don't have to pick on Dulles Airport, but I have to tell you, I really enjoy the planes. I don't like any airports. So I guess my question is, I'm just wondering, do we need to somehow push reset in some of the infrastructure around air travel, both on the safety side with air traffic control, but also, in these airports themselves? Have they kept up with the technology in the travel industry, or is that a lag factor?
Well, so it's a really good question. What I'd say is the biggest constraint, infrastructure constraint that inhibits economic growth is really in the airspace. It is the air traffic control system and modernizing that. There's a lot of places like DC, like New York, where there's more demand for flights than there is the ability for the airspace to handle flights. It's more about the airspace than it is about the gates or the runways almost everywhere in the country. That said, however, the experience for customers is not what we would like it to be. It is amazing what a difference it makes to customers when we build a new facility, a new terminal, a place like Denver, which we've just done. And so we're working hard to do the same kind of thing in some of the other airports. We got a big program ongoing in Chicago. We're working with the Port Authority in Newark to do the same. We're talking to MWA about some ideas there at Dulles. But there's also things that we can do to reduce the amount of time, frustration, uncertainty, hassle for customers. Things like the security lines, the TSA security, or Customs and Border Patrol. Some of our biggest challenges from a customer perspective are really those areas where people can get hung up in a long Customs and Border Patrol line, for example. And so working with the government to make those things more efficient and give all the resources that we need to do those things safely is probably another area that we would ask for focus in the years to come.
I know that you're committed. You just mentioned diversity and inclusion, but can you tell us a little bit about how you make that? How do you walk the walk of diversity and inclusion? Yeah. When you look at your pilots, you look at those executives that you brought into the company. Tell us what you're doing.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about walking the talk. And in corporate America, there's been a lot of talk. But if we went back 6 or 7 years, most of us are saying the same things that we said 6 or 7 years ago. And there just hasn't been enough action because we're still having those conversations. So we're trying to take real actions. One of the biggest things that we've done is the Aviate program for pilots. So we expect to train over 5,000 pilots. We are the only U.S. airline that owns our own flight training academy, which we just launched. But we expect to train 500 pilots there per year. And we expect that half of each incoming class will be, at least half will be women and people of color. And today, women and people of color represent only 19% of our total pilot workforce. There's a lot of historical reasons and barriers to entry for women and people of color to becoming a commercial airline pilot. And this is about giving them the chance. This is giving them essentially scholarships to go to training, to go to the schools. They, of course, have to pass all the same safety, regulatory, rigorous standards that we have for any pilot at United Airlines. But this is about giving them a chance and an opportunity that they would have never had before. And programs like that, I think, can make a real difference because giving someone the opportunity at a career like that can change their life, can change their families' lives. And so we're excited to be taking action. We've got more ideas to come. But those kinds of real, tangible actions are the things that will make a difference and that go beyond talk and turn the talk into real walk, as you described.
So Scott, just finally, I'm, as I was telling you, I'm a 2 million mile, close to 3, but, COVID got in the way of my progress, but I'm going to be back there. But I want you to blow us away. This is the Future of Mobility Conference. I know you're working with Archer Aviation, if I understand, to accelerate production on electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. I don't know if that's the only cool thing you're doing, but kind of blow us away for a minute. What's coming down the pike by way of how we're going to get around that our audience may not have thought about, but only you know?
Well, so one, we are excited to be working with Archer. We've got some more deals like that coming for electrifying aviation, or at least parts of the aviation chain. We're never going to be able to fly you from Dulles to Honolulu with batteries or with hydrogen in any foreseeable future because the energy density just isn't high enough. We do have some other ideas coming that we haven't announced yet, but even in the shorter term.
You could announce them right now.
I think, go ahead.
You can announce them right now.
Yeah, we got to get the deals done first. But in the shorter term, making it easy. You're talking about the future of mobility, making it easy for customers to travel. So we have something at United called the Travel Ready Center. We started working on this last summer with an anticipation that the pandemic was going to take a long time and that ultimately it would require vaccines or testing to get out of it. And so we're the only company, certainly airline that I know of in the world, where you can now take a picture of your vaccine card, or some countries that require tests, your test. And we've been training artificial intelligence to be able to give you a green check, and you can check that off. So countries like Croatia, Greece, Iceland that have announced they're going to allow U.S. citizens to come this summer if you've been vaccinated, we can let you do that easily. Instead of the hassle of going to the airport, it's just a nightmare, can be a nightmare. You can actually get that done in advance, know that you're good, print your boarding pass off, go through just like you would have done before. And really just a whole suite of projects that are designed to make it easy to travel. Travel can be frustrating. I have 7 kids. Trying to travel with 7 kids, it can be overwhelming to me. And I get lots of help when I travel. Trying to make that easy so it's convenient and get people to the exciting, cool places that they want to go in a good frame of mind, and having made the flight easy is really our mission with customers, and to really change that experience and take travel from being a hassle to being something that just enables the fun experience that you want to do.
Scott, I've just got to squeeze in one more. My team is going to get very upset, but you're global. I mean, you're a global CEO. You have a global company. Are there any other countries in the world that are doing things that we in the United States could learn from when it comes to transportation, moving around, ease of access? I mean, or are we the industry leader in the U.S.? I mean, I'm just interested in I keep reminding our audiences all the issues we talk about here today are international. So is there anything we can learn from abroad?
Well, look, I'll try to be diplomatic about it. We get held back sometimes by our process takes a lot longer. If we want to build a new runway, or if we want to change an air traffic control procedure to be more efficient, our permitting and approval process doesn't just take years; it takes decades in some cases to get done. And I think it's well-intentioned, but the unintended consequences. Sometimes when we talk about sustainability and environmental efforts, we're going to have to make massive changes to the grid. That's nothing to do with aviation, but massive changes to the grid. We're going to have a different permitting process, a faster, more efficient permitting process, or we're never going to realize the potential benefits from those. And there are parts of the world where they can accomplish those in much faster timeframes. And I think they're probably better off, at least in some cases, from that. So if I was going to encourage anyone to change anything different and learn from the rest of the world, let's try to be faster with getting important big projects that we all agree are important. Get faster at getting them done.
Do you fly as a passenger on your own planes?
I do all the time. I'm back to flying at least once a week now.
Well, Scott Kirby, Chief Executive Officer of United Airlines, look for him on your flight. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that brings us to the end of our program today. A big thank you to our sponsor, Clemons, for its support, and to all of you attendees for joining us for discussions. For those of you who have missed any of our conversations, we're going to have the video of all of this up on our website shortly. I'm Steve Clemons. Be well.